Pluto's a planet again. NASA's New Horizons race past Pluto. Let's see if it has the dog on it. Well, let me go on. Actually, this is something more important. Science alert. Flat earthers understand climate change and we're not sure what to think. So, again, the Flat Earth Society is the de facto leader of this idea. They're the go-to organization. So if you have any questions about this idea about rejecting the spinning ball model because the burden of proof hasn't been presented, they default to these guys. And they do this to Vice, and Vice is just on a hit right now. Vice.com has it out for auto hoaxers and flat earthers. Now, what is an auto hoaxer? If you don't know, it's somebody who recognizes that the mainstream media lies about everything, and we know this. And so we no longer sit around waiting to be told what to think. And we also recognize that alternative media is grassroots, just the new face of the mainstream media. And moreover, independent media, insofar as the independent media outlet bases its stories off of the mainstream media networks and what they're reporting, they're not independent. It's codependent media. So the only independent media out there, the only ones who are putting truth above consensus and who are adhering to a methodology that doesn't account for political bias or anybody's feelings or political correctness are the auto hoaxers. The auto hoaxers are the only ones who recognize that the media has no right to declare who's guilty of a crime before it's been investigated. They're completely bypassing due process. They're acting as judge, jury, executioner, convicting shooters who are alleged. And the story never changes. They never backtrack. They never offer corrections. And Nick Cruz has an alibi. Okay, so let's move on. A couple of other points I wanted to make. One, Mad Mike Hughes is running for governor of California. If you understand the Tide Pod reality and how all the politicians treat the mainstream media, which is the state church, as unfalsifiable, as essentially writing our history day by day, which is what they're doing, and they're falsifying our history as we go. I mean, that's bad. That you have 17 years of fake scripted events going down and adding to the death tolls and changing people's opinions, influencing people's attitudes, how they vote, how they see one another, how they see humanity. You know, it's a major act of corruption. The media is such a corrupting influence, left and right. And so, if you're voting for any politician in any of the established parties, Republican, Democrat, or fake independent, if you're running for somebody who's trying to, take over the system for their own, because they have a better vision or whatever, you're not only throwing your vote away, but you're not conscientiously objecting to the Psywar. To be against the psychological warfare operation, you have to object to it. You can't war for war. You have to, if you want peace, you have to engage in peace. You have to non-engage. No more activism. Like the mega guys punching fascists in the street. Like, yeah, I like it. Fascists need to be punched. But the mega guys are just as fascist because they're buying into the Space Force, and the Space Force is really built on the back of the environmentalist program. It's all about synchronizing everything into a one world order, universal threats. Universal threats and a universal savior. So, I'm sorry, but if you can't, if you understand the heliocentric deception, you cannot in good conscience vote for anybody in any of the political parties. You have to object to it. Voting for them is basically giving the media credibility. It's giving your stamp of approval to their fake stories. So when these politicians come out to present their solutions to these fake problems, you're actually helping the growth of the state and these saviors. And we have to reject the saviors, especially political saviors. So I guess my point here is that Mad Mike Hughes is running for governor of California, and if you're in California, that's where you ought to vote. You ought to support him because he is the only legitimate candidate who is post Globe, post media, and who understands that you can't trust the establishment politicians because they're all whores and sellouts. He even said, if you vote him governor of California, he will shut down the Bohemian Grove because he knows what it's about. Here's a conspiracy for you. According to some I've heard, this is an interesting one. We'll see what's going to happen. In 9/11, you know how they do these dates. And nobody died in Flight 93. So, speaking of 9/11, it's happening on a Tuesday, 17th year of the 9/11. And then, of course, Q is the 17th letter. So, it's expected that Q is going to drop some big news today. And if you don't know who Q is an anonymous news source who drops cryptic hints about things to come. Okay, this is an article, Is the Flat Earth Society Growing? And look, the Flat Earth Society should change its name really to Enclosed System Society. Oh look, we're joined by a stalker. Go ahead and ban the stalker. We don't have time for these losers. I don't care if you are the head editor of Reddit. You spent the last 8 years of your life policing people's thoughts. Like, that's disgusting. I'm so disgusted by these haters of free speech. Absolute haters. And, they mudflingers, muckrakers, anonymous accusers. So tired of anonymous sources too. This is the problem we have with the media, is that you're getting your reality secondhand from people who are paid to read scripts. That's what we're really getting. And I see all these people coming in on YouTube and otherwise, and I think they feel really empowered. They feel like they're empowered by the ability to avoid responsibility for their actions. Flat Earth Society hasn't gone from disk to dome. However, Flat Earth Society is in a de facto dome. I mean, they still haven't let go of outer space. They still have these quirky ideas, but there's no real official standard accepted model. That's the thing. Like, they don't have one that they would present. They have their answers, but it's still, this is the thing. I happen to think that there is a false dichotomy at the very heart of the online flat earth community. This idea is not new. There were people putting up billboards 100 years ago calling out the astronomers. So, this isn't new. There were doubters. You just don't hear about the doubters. They're marginalized. Free thinkers are always marginalized. So there's this false choice that came up the instant that Flat Earth hit YouTube and got popular. All the big channels were saying, trust me, not the Flat Earth Society. They're controlled opposition. They are controlled opposition. Oh yeah, one more thing too I want to bring up. Because we're speaking of controlled opposition. So we know the Flat Earth Society is controlled opposition, but I think that the new controlled opposition for the online Flat Earth movement, as it's been, newly constituted, is also controlled opposition. And what all controlled ops do is they say that somebody else is it. It's a deflection. So when somebody says, trust me, not those guys, it's a deflection. And I'm saying don't trust them. So the closer I look, I'm looking at common denominators, and what I find is that what they all have in common is that their models end where the globe ends. Their model ends at the perimeter of the globe. That's where the map ends. And so what the only difference is, the Flat Earth Society thinks that, or at least in their public statements, that there's an explanation for gravity and it has to do with vertical acceleration. But is that really any crazier than the explanation that we don't know what causes gravity, but we do know that there's a dome? Like, one person is asserting vertical acceleration, the other group is asserting an enclosure on top that's impassable. None of them know. Both of them have their respective beliefs, but as far as I'm concerned, they're both on the side of believers in a complete model. The globe, the dome, the Flat Earth Society's accelerating flat disk, to me, those are all controlled opposition. The only viable opposition to that is an agnostic approach, open to infinite possibilities and not ruling out things until they've been ruled out by evidence, by counterfactual evidence. So it's infinite until proven otherwise. Not it's enclosed because this Bible says, or this expert says, or this guy on YouTube says. I mean, remember at the conference, last conference, I think it was the one in Canada or something, some kid asked Mark Sargent, what's past Antarctica? And Mark says, because the kid says, is there more land? And Mark says, yeah, there's more land, a little bit, but then there's a barrier. You know, they artificially put a barrier. And so to me, anybody pushing an enclosed system, whether it's a sci-fi model or enclosed creationism from the Bible, is putting a barrier that we don't know to be there. And they don't know it either. And they believe it. And they think that their beliefs are, somehow equate to, that's reality. That they believe it, it's in the Bible, therefore it's real because the Bible is the inerrant word of God. And that's not scientific. In fact, that's the same faulty reasoning that we see with the globe model, God of the gaps, the divine fallacy. If you don't have an answer, you supply an explanation. Well, explanations aren't good enough, even if they seem to close the gaps. So the thing with the Infinite Plane Society, okay, so you get these government trolls, like that loser from reddit.com, who has spent almost a year and a half hurling insults at me from the chats, and you've all seen it. And at this point, who cares? I changed my name on Facebook to Mr. Satan because at this point, if you're going to be scared off by what some anonymous, unaccountable, ballless douche nozzle has to say, then we don't need you anyway. And so I figured, well, I'll just put Mr. Satan there, and that'll scare off all the church ladies right off the bat. And if you're attacking me anyway, it shows you don't have an argument against what I'm saying, so you're trying to attack my character based on mostly things you've made up. I mean, these people are just low, lowest of the low, anti-intellectual, hateful, anti-free speech, bigoted, nasty. The person who is here, though, the reason I bring this up is this. They think that they can stop us from talking about infinite until proven otherwise. They think they can get you to kneel and kiss the dome model. They want to give you a new idol. They'll get you to worship it if they can just drive you off of what I'm saying. And I'm saying don't trust anybody who tells you they know something they can't possibly know. You don't know the sun's 93 million miles away. You don't know the earth to be vertically accelerating. And you don't know there to be a barrier. And anybody that's saying so is part of the controlled opposition. The domed or vertically accelerating disk models are controlled opposition to the globe. They work for the same team. Now, they attack me because they think that you're so dumb that if you hear somebody say something disparaging about me, you'll unplug and you'll go back to CNN. That's how dumb they think you are. Now, the truth is, they use ad hominem, but it's not going to work anymore because of what we've done here recently. The Infinite Plane Society is not me. I'm not a society. I'm just I'm just the secretary. The Infinite Plane Society is an open source organization of loose-knit individuals, loose-knit group of individuals, very loosely organized. There's no hierarchy. It's not formal. And the only thing we agree on is that we don't know everything. And that the experts that have the information that we used to trust, we no longer trust. The experts that used to tell us what's up there or what's down below or what happened before, we no longer trust them. And so if you want to attack me for losing faith in priests or media pundits, then